Hi and welcome. So we have seen about file class, correct? Very simple. Uh, we seen its constructors, its methods. How to open a file, how to create a file. We have seen actually how to create a file. Now let's see how to write into that file. Fine. So for writing, one of the methods is FileWriter class. Using FileWriter class, we will create an object of the FileWriter class, and that will be used to write the text data into the file. Okay, or you can say the character data. Fine. So how it is done, what are its constructors? So first one is file writer, let's say fw equals to new file writer. Okay, and the path in which you have to write the file name, sorry, in which you have to write something, the path of the file. This is the first constructor. Or if some file fw is pointing to some file, fine, and you have to write something into this file, so you can directly access fw also. So that is the second one, file writer. Let's say fw1 equals to new file writer, fine, and you can simply write here fw. Okay, so it is nothing but file reference, fine, another file reference. So these are the two constructors that we use for this one. Now the about to constructors, when we use the about to constructors, they will override the already existing data. Okay, override already existing data. What do I mean by this? If we have a file, it has some data into it. Okay, now in this file I reference it by fw and I write 7, 8, 9, 10. So the new, after changing, it will become 7, 8, 9, 10. This 1, 2, 3, 4 will vanish, it will be overridden. Fine. Now instead of overriding, if we want that whatever is already written into the file, just append the data after it, append the new data after it. So we do not want to overwrite, we want to append. In that case, the constructors that we have to use is actually the same, but with a little bit of difference. Okay, so the constructors that we will be using is nothing but same file writer fw, let's say, equals to new file writer. Okay, here we will pass the path and we will have a boolean variable here. Okay, true or false, a boolean value. Fine. True means you have to append is true, and by default this is false. Okay, if you do not mention anything, it is considered to be as false. Fine. So this was the previous one. We have not mentioned anything, it is considered to be as false. If you mention true here, in that case it will append. Fine. And similarly we can do for this one also. We can directly use as the fourth constructor, you can say, writing file reference and true or false. If you write true, then it will be in append mode. If you do not write it, then it will be write mode, normal write mode. Fine. So these four constructors, what they will do, if the particular file is not available, if the file does not exist, then they will create the file. Okay, if the file does not exist, then they will create the file. We do not have to call create new file. Fine. If the file does not exist, they will simply create the file. And if the file exists, they will simply start referencing to that file using the reference variable that we are using. Fine. So these are the four constructors of file writer class that will be useful to write data into the file. Okay. Now what are the methods that are used by this class? So the first method that is used is write method. Fine. This write method takes a Unicode value, a ASCII value of the character. Fine. To write a single character into the file. So this is used to write single character into the file. Okay, single character. You can also pass the character directly here. You can pass the character directly. Why? Because character to integer conversion is valid. Fine. So it will automatically convert this character to integer. When it writes into that file, we will get the character itself. So if you give the input as 100, you will get the answer as D. It will print at D. And if you give D, then also it will give D only. Okay, so whichever is more convenient. The next thing is, if you want to write a character array, then we will pass a character array into it. Fine, so it will write many characters, to write an array of characters. Similarly, if you want to write a string, so we will write a string. Fine, string is to write a string to the file. Okay. Now there is one important function. See this. What happens is, this is a file. We are writing something into that file, correct? Using a buffer. Means all of them use something called a buffer. So the data from our file writer will go into this buffer, and from this buffer it will travel to the file. Okay. But sometimes it happens that some of the data bytes are lost here, are stuck here. They do not travel perfectly to the end. So for that, after writing each write operation, after completing your write operations, okay, we should use a method called as flush method. Okay, flush method. What this method does, it will simply push all the data to the file. Okay, all the data, all means it is guaranteed that whichever, if the byte is stuck here, it will also be pushed. Fine, so the buffer will become empty. So to give guarantee that total data including the last character is properly written into the file, we use flush. Fine, and then we use close. What close does, it will simply close it, nothing else. Okay, it will simply close, it will break this point and it will close it. Now FW will not be able to write into the file, the reference is gone, it will close. So the next function is nothing but the close function. Fine. So these are the methods that are used in the FileWriter class, and these are the constructors of the FileWriter class. Now we will see all of these through coding, okay, in the next video, and then we will see what are the disadvantages of FileWriter. Fine. Thank you.